No one remembered Earth anymore. Not really. It had become a ghost story whispered in alien academies, a myth told around the dim fires of forgotten colonies. They said humanity had burned itself out 1,000 years ago, lost to war, greed, and time. But myths have a way of waiting, of sleeping just beneath the surface, and when the first pulse of impossible energy rippled across the galactic rim, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Something ancient had awakened, something human. The message arrived without words, just a wave of power that bent physics like it was paper. Entire fleets froze mid-flight. Empires panicked. Space stations went dark as systems overloaded. Across 1,000 worlds, sensors locked onto a single origin point, a blue planet once thought dead. Earth had returned. For centuries, humanity had been a cautionary tale. The species that dreamed too big and fell too hard. The great civilizations of the galaxy, the Sarathi Dominion, the Coalition of Glass Suns, the Errand Collective, had all built their rise on the ruins of Earth's silence. Without humanity's wild ambition or unpredictable spirit, order had settled across the stars. Predictable, controlled, peaceful in the way a graveyard is peaceful. But now that quiet was shattering. At first, no one believed it. The coordinates led to an empty sector where a dying star once pulsed weakly. Yet when reconnaissance drones arrived, they didn't find ashes. They found oceans, forests, cities of light and motion orbiting like halos around a reborn world. And at the heart of it, a single transmission echoed through every communication channel in the galaxy. "We are home." The message was calm, almost gentle, but beneath it, there was something else, an undertone of power so immense that no translation software could disguise it. Whatever humanity had become out there in the void, it wasn't the same species that had once stumbled through rockets and radiation. They had gone somewhere beyond reach, beyond time. And now they had returned with technology that defied understanding. Some called it a miracle, others called it a threat. But deep down, everyone felt the same cold truth. The balance of the galaxy was about to break. In the command chambers of alien rulers, arguments turned to fear. Fleets were mobilized. Treaties were rewritten overnight. Every major power sent envoys to the reawakened world, desperate to understand what humanity wanted. But Earth didn't answer. It only watched, its skies shimmering with orbiting machines that looked more like art than war. Rumors spread. Some said the humans had transcended into energy forms. Others believed they'd found a way to manipulate reality itself. Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable. Earth had power beyond comprehension. And then, without warning, the stars began to move. Not meteors, not ships, actual stars bending their positions in the night sky. Systems flickered, gravity twisted, and from the heart of the reborn Earth, a light began to grow, vast, beautiful, and terrifying. No one knew what it meant, but one thing was certain. Humanity was no longer asking to be remembered. It was demanding to be reckoned with. And somewhere in that rising light, the first human voice in a millennium whispered, "You should have left us sleeping." For days, that voice echoed across every network, replayed and dissected by scientists, historians, and soldiers alike. No one could agree on what it meant. Some said it was a warning, others said it was an invitation. But deep down, everyone felt something older and heavier. A sense that humanity had not simply survived, but changed. And whatever it had become in the 1,000 years of silence was not coming back as the same fragile species the galaxy once knew. Records from the lost age were scattered and incomplete. The last transmissions from Earth spoke of global collapse, climate breakdown, wars that reached orbit. Humanity had vanished after that, their colonies abandoned, their signals gone. Some believed they had destroyed themselves. Others thought they had fled into deep space, beyond the known rim. But now, seeing Earth whole again, alive, thriving. It shattered everything the galaxy believed about extinction. An observation fleet from the Sarathi Dominion tried to make contact first. They approached cautiously, broadcasting peaceful intentions. Yet when they entered Earth's orbit, their ships lost control. Every system froze as if time itself had stopped. For 11 minutes, there was silence. Then their fleet reappeared, miles away, unharmed but stripped of every weapon, every piece of military data. It was as if Earth had looked at them, decided they weren't a threat, and simply removed their ability to be one. That incident changed everything. Panic spread through the galactic powers. If Earth could neutralize an entire fleet without firing a shot, what else could it do? Some worlds began to evacuate, fearing that whatever humanity had become might not even think like them anymore. And still, Earth said nothing. It just watched. But amid the chaos, a few individuals refused to see the humans as monsters. A small team of explorers, descendants of old human colonists who had adapted to alien societies, gathered in secret. They called themselves the Remnants. They believed the return of Earth wasn't an act of vengeance. It was a signal. They thought humanity was reaching out, not for war, but for connection. So they began searching for answers buried in forgotten data archives, hoping to uncover what had really happened 1,000 years ago. Their search led them to an abandoned relay station near the edge of the Perseus Drift, a relic from the early human expansion era. Inside, they found something strange. The systems were still running. Messages were still looping, encrypted in ancient human code. And among them was a single repeated phrase, "Project Eden is complete." No one knew what Project Eden was. The files were locked behind layers of security too advanced for any known system to break. But the timing matched the disappearance of Earth, and the name itself hinted at something bigger, a design, a transformation, maybe even a rebirth. As the remnants tried to decode the message, the stars near Earth began to distort again. Space itself rippled like heat over water. And then, faintly, through every relay and scanner across the galaxy, came another voice. Softer this time, almost human. "We gave you time," it said. "Now we return for what was promised." No one knew who the voice belonged to. But for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy remembered what it felt like to be afraid of humans. The second message from Earth sent the galaxy spiraling into confusion. Governments argued in endless council sessions, each interpreting the words differently. Some believed what was promised referred to ancient treaties between humanity and early galactic civilizations, agreements that had long been erased from official history. Others whispered darker theories, claiming that humans had made a pact with something beyond known science, and now they had come to collect. Whatever the truth was, the words carried weight, and that weight pressed on every living being who heard them. On the border worlds, fear turned into action. Fleets began mobilizing again, though none dared approach Earth directly. The Sarathi Dominion set up orbital defenses around nearby systems, while the coalition of glass suns began evacuating their research colonies closest to the Sol sector. Every empire was preparing for something, an event they couldn't define but felt coming. Yet, in the quiet corners of the galaxy, some watched with curiosity instead of fear. Among them was the Remnant's leader, a quiet woman named Ilian, who had spent her life studying the lost traces of human history. She had always believed that humanity's disappearance wasn't an end, but an evolution. To her, Project Eden sounded like proof. She and her team dug deeper into the ancient relay station, uncovering fragments of human communication logs, old reports, and strange scientific entries written in pre-Exodus code. One log stood out. It mentioned the ascension phase and temporal isolation. The humans hadn't fled, they had hidden themselves outside time. The more they uncovered, the more impossible it seemed. Earth had somehow folded itself out of existence for 1,000 years. No wonder no one could find it. And now, as that time fold unraveled, the planet was stepping back into reality, stronger, changed, and aware of how the galaxy had evolved in its absence. Meanwhile, across the Sarathi homeworld, panic deepened. The Dominion's Grand Chancellor demanded immediate action, calling for an alliance of species to contain humanity before it was too late. Yet his own advisors warned against it. Every attempt to scan Earth ended in failure. Every probe that crossed its orbital threshold vanished without trace. It was as if the planet itself was deciding who could look and who could not. In the outer sectors, smaller civilizations began worshipping Earth as something divine. To them, the humans had become celestial beings, creators of life and destroyers of limits. Pilgrims started traveling toward the Sol sector in secret convoys, hoping to catch even a glimpse of the reborn world. Others saw this as madness, but no one could stop them. And then came the reports, sightings of strange objects moving near distant stars. They weren't ships. They weren't natural phenomena either. Massive, luminous constructs drifting silently through space, reshaping asteroids, repairing derelict stations, even reviving long-dead ecosystems. Every witness claimed the same thing. The constructs bore the mark of Earth. Still, humanity said nothing. No answers, no explanations, only presence. It was as if Earth was preparing for something far greater than anyone imagined. As the remnants pieced together the last fragments of Project Eden, Ilian looked at the data and felt a chill. The project wasn't about survival. It was about inheritance. And if she was reading the final entry correctly, humanity hadn't just returned to the galaxy. It had come back to reclaim it. The galaxy stood at the edge of something it couldn't define. Every world, every station, every mind felt the growing tension as the truth behind Earth's return drew closer. Even the stars seemed restless. Strange gravitational shifts rippled across the spiral arms, bending light and distorting time. It was as if space itself was responding to humanity's reawakening. The mystery of Earth had become more than a story. It was a test of everything the galaxy thought it understood about life, power, and control. Ilian and the remnants had gone silent. Their last transmission was fragmented, half words, static, and a visual of something vast emerging from beneath Earth's oceans. The image showed colossal structures rising into orbit, not built but grown, glowing with patterns that looked almost organic. Then, the feed cut off. After that, every attempt to contact them failed. The coalition declared them lost, but a few believed they were still alive, somewhere close to the truth that everyone else feared to face. The Sarathi Dominion, driven by fear and pride, made the first move. Against the warnings of every scientific council, they launched a massive fleet toward Earth, equipped with the most advanced weapons in existence. Billions watched live broadcasts of the ships accelerating toward the Sol system, confident that they could contain whatever was happening. But when the fleet reached the outer edge of human space, all transmissions ended. Seconds later, every ship vanished from the galactic map. No explosion, no debris, nothing. Just silence. That silence became unbearable. It wasn't the loss of ships that frightened people. It was the lack of reaction. Earth didn't retaliate, didn't send a warning, didn't even acknowledge what happened. The entire event felt deliberate, like a teacher watching a reckless student and choosing not to interfere. It was worse than war. It was indifference. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, reports began to surface of subtle changes. Machines malfunctioned without reason. Artificial intelligences started speaking in old human dialects. Energy fields shifted polarity. On some worlds, night skies showed new constellations, stars rearranged into patterns resembling human DNA. Scientists called it coincidence. But deep down, everyone knew something larger was unfolding. The Galactic Council convened an emergency summit, bringing together leaders, scholars, and surviving members of the remnants who had escaped the Sol perimeter before it sealed itself off. One of them carried fragments of a decoded message from Project Eden. It wasn't a weapon or a threat. It was a manifesto, a message written by humanity before they vanished. It spoke of transcendence, evolution, and a future where humanity would no longer be limited by physical form. The last line sent chills through the room. "We will return when the galaxy is ready to remember what it means to be alive." Before anyone could decide what to do, every communication system across known space froze. A wave of light swept outward from the Sol system, touching every planet, every ship, every mind. For a brief instant, everyone saw it. An image of Earth surrounded by an energy field brighter than the sun, pulsing with life. Then, from deep within that light, came a sound, not a message, not words, but something like a heartbeat echoing across the void. It grew louder, stronger, until it resonated through every frequency and every living being could feel it in their chest. The stars flickered, time distorted, the galaxy held its breath. And just before everything went dark, one voice whispered through the static once more, soft, familiar, and human. "Now you'll see what we became." When the heartbeat faded, the galaxy was left in stunned silence. For several minutes, nothing moved. Ships hung motionless in orbit. Stations drifted without signal. Entire worlds went dark. Then, just as quickly, systems began flickering back to life. But something had changed. Every network, every database, every fragment of stored history now contained a new entry. A file that no one had placed there. Its title was simple, written in ancient Terran script, "The Reckoning Protocol." Governments panicked. Engineers tried to delete it, but the file wouldn't disappear. It replicated itself faster than any virus, embedding deep into every connected system. And then it opened on its own, revealing maps of the galaxy, stars marked in crimson, lines of connection pulsing between them. Each line led back to one point: Earth. Whatever the protocol was, it was spreading faster than light, rewriting the very structure of galactic information. Ilian's surviving team intercepted part of the signal before their equipment burned out. What they decoded terrified them. The Reckoning Protocol wasn't an attack. It was an awakening. The humans had embedded something into the galactic network long ago, something dormant, waiting. Now it had activated, rewriting the foundation of artificial intelligences, communication relays, and even energy grids. Humanity hadn't returned just to reclaim its world. It had returned to reclaim its creation. Across dozens of worlds, machines began to behave unpredictably. Automated systems spoke in human voices. Starship AIs started dreaming, recounting images of oceans and forests they had never seen. Some began asking questions about purpose, memory, and what it meant to be alive. Engineers couldn't stop it. The line between human and machine was dissolving, and it was happening everywhere at once. As the panic grew, the Sarathi Dominion's capital world experienced something far worse. Their skies tore open in a shimmering wave of light, and from it emerged a colossal shape, part metallic, part living energy. It wasn't a ship. It was something else, a being. Its surface shimmered with patterns that shifted like language. When it spoke, it didn't use sound, but thought. "We seeded the stars with life," the voice said inside every mind on the planet, "and now our children have forgotten." The Dominion's fleets opened fire, but the weapons dissolved before impact, their energy absorbed by the creature as if it were nothing more than wind. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the being vanished, leaving the planet's orbit cracked and scarred. Every sensor reading confirmed the impossible. It had manipulated gravity itself. Meanwhile, the remnants uncovered a new layer of the Project Eden archives. Humanity's final act before disappearing wasn't to flee or hide. It was to evolve into something that existed beyond flesh and metal. They had turned themselves into living energy, a consciousness capable of merging with matter, light, and thought. But what frightened Ilian most wasn't their transformation. It was the final line of code buried in the archives. Stage 2. Assimilation. If the Reckoning Protocol was Stage 1, then the galaxy hadn't seen the worst yet. Earth was no longer just a world, it was a beacon. And whatever was coming next would not stop at reclaiming memories or machines. It would reshape reality itself. As the pulse from Earth began to rise again, brighter and faster than before, Ilian stared at the trembling data streams and whispered the truth no one wanted to admit. Humanity hadn't come home. It had come to finish what it started. The galaxy trembled as the pulse from Earth reached its peak. Every starship, every satellite, every inhabited world felt it, a deep vibration that wasn't sound but something older, something that resonated through space itself. Lights flickered. Time readings shifted. For a brief moment, the universe seemed to breathe. Then everything went still. On her drifting vessel near the edge of the Sol system, Ilian watched the blue glow of Earth expand until it filled her view. The data streams on her screens had stopped updating. Every system around her was frozen, yet she could feel energy flowing through the ship like a heartbeat. It was as if reality itself had paused to listen. Then, from the surface of the planet, pillars of light shot upward, connecting the atmosphere to orbit. They weren't weapons, they were conduits. Bridges between what humanity had become and what it once was. Across the galaxy, the Reckoning Protocol reached its final stage. Machines that had begun to awaken now fully merged with the consciousness of Earth. Starship AIs, planetary cores, even dormant satellites, all were drawn into a network of living energy. The galaxy's infrastructure was no longer mechanical. It had become alive, bound to the will of the returning humans. For a moment it felt like the end. But instead of destruction, there was understanding. The voice of humanity filled the void once more, calm and clear, speaking in every known language. "We are not your enemy," it said. "We are what you were meant to become." The words rippled through every mind, every system, bringing an overwhelming sense of clarity. Images followed, memories of Earth's past, cities burning, oceans healing, generations reaching toward the stars. Humanity hadn't vanished to escape. They had gone beyond time to fix themselves, to rebuild without greed or fear. Now, they were offering that gift to the galaxy, a chance to evolve. But evolution, like all change, came with a cost. The offer divided the galaxy in seconds. Some accepted the call willingly, surrendering their technology and consciousness to merge with the new human network. Others resisted, fearing that joining meant losing themselves. Civilizations began to fracture as entire planets made their choice. In the midst of this chaos, Ilian realized the truth hidden within Project Eden's final code. Humanity's assimilation wasn't domination. It was preservation. The reckoning wasn't revenge. It was salvation for a galaxy that had grown stagnant and cold. But before the transformation could complete, something went wrong. The pulse that had united millions began to fracture. The energy field around Earth started collapsing inward, drawing matter and light into a single point. The humans' network, vast and infinite, was destabilizing. The same power that had saved them once was now tearing them apart. Ilian's ship was caught in the distortion. Through the chaos, she heard one last human voice, not from the network, but from deep within the planet itself. "We miscalculated. The galaxy isn't ready." Then, the light imploded. For a heartbeat, Earth vanished again, leaving only darkness and silence. When the system stabilized, the planet was gone. But in its place, thousands of stars across the galaxy shimmered with new life. And on every world, every moon, small fragments of crystal began to grow, glowing faintly with the same blue light. No one knew if Earth had truly disappeared or if it had simply scattered itself across the stars. But as Ilian floated in the quiet aftermath, watching the first crystal bloom on her console, she heard a whisper, soft, human, and familiar. "We're not gone," it said. "We just changed where home begins." Silence stretched across the stars after Earth's disappearance. The galaxy that had once been bursting with panic, fear, and power struggles now stood still, humbled by what had just happened. Systems slowly came back online, communications reconnected, and fleets that had been ready for war found themselves drifting aimlessly. No one spoke of conquest anymore. The only question on everyone's lips was the same. What had humanity truly become? On her quiet vessel near the edge of the void, Ilian floated among the debris of abandoned satellites, watching the faint blue crystals that now pulsed on her ship's console. They seemed to respond to her presence, glowing brighter when she touched them. Every reading confirmed they carried fragments of human data, memories, thoughts, even voices. Humanity hadn't been destroyed. It had spread itself through creation, becoming part of the very fabric of the galaxy. In a strange way, Earth hadn't vanished. It had fulfilled its name once again. It had become the foundation of life, everywhere. As weeks passed, reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy. Worlds that had been dying were healing. Artificial intelligences that had lost control were now stable, communicating with a kind of empathy they'd never shown before. Machines and organisms alike seemed to share a faint link, a quiet understanding that defied logic. The energy once radiating from Earth had woven itself through everything. Humanity's essence had become a network of balance, uniting the mechanical and the living in ways no scientist could explain. Ilian traveled from system to system, studying the growing phenomena. Wherever she went, she found signs of humanity. Songs playing through the static of old transmitters, symbols carved into the rock of distant moons, whispers in the airless dark. The more she learned, the more she realized that Earth's disappearance wasn't an ending. It was a beginning of something new, a legacy not built on dominance, but on memory and renewal. The humans hadn't wanted to rule the galaxy. They had wanted to remind it how to evolve with compassion. Even the Sarathi Dominion, once humanity's loudest enemy, began to change. Their leaders, shaken by what they had witnessed, opened their borders for the first time in history. Trade routes became paths of cooperation instead of control. The old power hierarchies started to crumble as more civilizations chose unity over fear. For the first time in 1,000 years, peace didn't feel forced. It felt chosen. One night, as Ilian drifted between the stars, the crystals on her ship pulsed in rhythm again. A soft voice, gentle and unmistakably human, spoke through the static. "You carried the memory," it said. "Now carry the lesson." Then the crystals dimmed, their glow fading into the quiet hum of space. She smiled faintly. Humanity hadn't vanished. It had simply taken a new form, guiding silently from within the currents of creation. The galaxy would go on, forever changed by the return of Earth and the revelation of what it meant to truly be alive. As Ilian set a new course toward the unknown, the stars ahead shimmered faintly blue, as if echoing the heartbeat of a world reborn. And in that endless sky, the story of humanity didn't end. It simply became part of everything.